The alarms screamed through station like wounded animals. Red lights flashed in every corridor. Captain Park ran toward the command center, his boots pounding against the metal floor. He had served in the border wars. He had seen death up close, but the cold feeling in his stomach told him this was different. The year was 2347. Humanity had spread across the stars. They built colonies on distant worlds. They made friends with some alien species. They made enemies with others. Station was supposed to be safe. It floated in neutral space, far from any war zone. Diplomats from 12 different species had gathered here to talk about peace. Now peace was dying. Park burst into the command center. Lieutenant Han sat at her console, her fingers flying across the controls. She was young, barely 25, but her eyes were hard with focus. On the main screen, Park saw what had triggered the alarms. His heart sank. Ships, hundreds of them. They filled the space around the station like a swarm of angry insects. Their hulls were black and covered with weapons. Park recognized them immediately. Warships. The Empire was a coalition of 3 hostile species. They hated humans. They hated everyone who wasn't them. The peace talks had been meant to find common ground. Instead, they had brought war to their doorstep. How many? Park asked. Han's voice was steady, but Park could see her hands shaking. Over 300 warships, Captain. They dropped out of hyperspace 2 minutes ago. They're jamming all our communications. Park felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. Station had no real weapons. They had a small security team of 15 soldiers. They had shields that were meant to stop space debris, not military weapons. Against 300 warships, they had nothing. The screen flickered. A face appeared. It belonged to the commander. The alien was tall, with 4 arms and skin like gray stone. His eyes were black pools that showed no emotion. When he spoke, his voice was like rocks grinding together. Human Commander, I am Fleet Master. You will surrender all human personnel to us within 6 hours. If you refuse, we will destroy your station. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. The screen went dark. Park stood very still. Around him, the command center had gone quiet. Everyone was looking at him, waiting for orders. He thought about the 47 humans on this station. Scientists, diplomats, engineers, good people who had come here to work for peace. He thought about the 200 alien delegates who were now trapped with them. Lieutenant Han, he said, find a way through that jamming, get a message to Earth. Sir, their jamming is too strong. Nothing is getting through. Then make something get through. You're the best communications officer in the fleet. Prove it. Han nodded and turned back to her console. Park activated the station-wide communicator. All personnel, this is Captain Park. We are under siege by forces. All civilians will move to the inner sections immediately. Security teams will report to defensive positions. Stay calm. Help is coming. He hoped he wasn't lying. Doctor was in the medical bay when the attack began. She was trained to understand alien bodies. She had spent 20 years studying the different species of the galaxy. Now she used that knowledge to save lives. The first wave of weapons fire had hit the outer sections. The shields held, but the impact had thrown people against walls and floors. Broken bones, cuts, concussions, worked without rest, moving from patient to patient. A diplomat lay on one of her tables. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with blue skin and 4 eyes. His species was known for their strength and their pride. Right now, he looked small and scared. Will we survive, Doctor? He asked. Finished treating the cut on his arm. I don't know, but I know humans. We don't give up easily. They made a sound that might have been a laugh. Your species is young. You are not the strongest or the fastest. The galaxy has never understood why you matter. Smiled, but there was no humor in it. Maybe today you'll find out. In the engineering section, Ensign was fighting her own battle. She was 23 years old, fresh from the academy, and she was trying to keep the shields from failing. Her hands were burned from touching overheated circuits. Sweat dripped down her face. "Come on," she whispered to the machines. "Just a little longer." The shield generators were never meant for this kind of punishment. Each hit from the weapons drained more power. At this rate, they would fail in 6 hours, maybe less. Made a decision. She started rerouting power from every non-essential system. Lights in empty corridors went dark. Heating in unused sections shut down. She took everything the station could spare and fed it to the shields. It bought them 2 more hours. It wasn't enough, but it was something. In the command center, Lieutenant Hand suddenly sat up straight. "Captain, I think I found a way." Park was at her side in seconds. "Talk to me." The jamming uses a specific frequency pattern, but they're also broadcasting their own signals on carrier waves. If I can piggyback our message onto their carrier wave, it might slip through. Will it work? Hand's jaw tightened. My grandmother was a signals officer in the First Contact War. She taught me tricks that aren't in any manual. If anyone can make this work, I can. Park put his hand on her shoulder. "Do it." Hand worked for 30 minutes. Her fingers never stopped moving. Finally, she pressed one last button and held her breath. Somewhere across the vast darkness of space, a tiny signal began its journey toward Earth. It carried a simple message: "Help us. We are dying." Now all they could do was wait, and hope that someone was listening. 4 hours remained on the clock. The commander had been clear. Surrender or die. Captain Park had chosen a third option: fight. The station shook as another wave of weapons fire hit the shields. In the main hall, 200 alien delegates huddled together like frightened children. They came from a dozen different worlds. Some had fur. Some had scales. Some had no bodies at all, just clouds of thinking gas held together by magnetic fields. All of them were afraid. Ambassador stood before them. She was 60 years old, with gray hair and calm eyes. She had spent her whole life talking to aliens, building bridges between species. Now she had to keep these people from falling apart. "The humans must surrender," said a thin creature with too many legs. His name was Ambassador, and he represented the Trade Federation. "The want only them. If we give them what they want, the rest of us will live." A murmur of agreement spread through the crowd. Felt her heart grow cold, but she kept her face still. "You think they will let you go?" she asked quietly. "They said." "They lied." His voice cut through the hall like a blade. "We intercepted their communications. They plan to destroy this station completely. No witnesses, no survivors. They will kill every single one of us, human or not." The hall went silent. Fear changed to something else, something darker. Many legs trembled. "Then we are all dead." "No," said, "we are not dead yet, and while we live, we fight." Sergeant Shin was 52 years old. He had been a soldier for 30 of those years. His face was covered with scars from battles most people had never heard of. He stood at the main corridor junction with 6 other security officers. Their weapons were small and old. Against warriors, they would be almost useless. But Shin had learned something in his long career. Wars were not won by weapons alone. They were won by will. "Listen to me," he told his team. "When those doors open, we hold this position. We don't retreat. We don't surrender. We buy time for the civilians." A young officer named looked at him with wide eyes. "Sergeant, we can't win this fight." Shin smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "I didn't say we would win. I said we would hold. There's a difference." In the engineering section, Ensign was losing her battle with the shield generators. The power levels were dropping faster now. Every hit from the weapons took more than she could replace. Her assistant, a young man named, worked beside her. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold his tools. "We're not going to make it," he whispered. Grabbed his arm, her grip was strong. "Look at me, we keep working, we keep fighting. Until the very last second we keep trying. That's what it means to be human. Stared at her, then he nodded and went back to work. Allowed herself one moment of doubt, one moment of fear. Then she pushed it away and focused on the machines. Every minute mattered. Every second was a gift. In the medical bay, Doctor was running out of supplies. Too many wounded, not enough medicine. She had to make hard choices about who to help and who to let suffer. The diplomat found her sitting alone in a corner. She was crying silently, wiping her tears away before anyone could see. "Doctor," he said softly, "why do you weep?" Looked up at him. "Because I can't save everyone. Because good people are going to die today. Because I'm scared." The sat down beside her. He was so large that he made the floor creak. "My people believe that tears are weakness. But watching you, I think maybe we are wrong. It takes strength to feel so much and still keep working." Laughed, even though nothing was funny. "Is that supposed to make me feel better?" "No, it is supposed to make you understand. The galaxy looks at humans and sees a young species. Small, soft, unremarkable, but I am beginning to think we have missed something important about you." "What's that?" The 4 eyes met hers. "You break, you cry, you feel fear and pain and doubt, but you do not stop, you never stop. That is something I have not seen in any other species." In the command center, Captain Park watched the countdown timer. 3 hours left. Still no response to their distress signal. He had sent Lieutenant Han to rest, but she had refused to leave her console. "Captain," she said suddenly, "I'm picking up something strange in the communications." Park moved to her side. "What is it?" "They're scared, sir. Their commander is demanding more ships. He's saying that 30 soldiers are coming and they need to prepare." Park frowned. 30 soldiers? That doesn't make sense. Why would they be afraid of 30 soldiers? Han shook her head. "I don't know, but whatever they're afraid of, it's coming from Earth's direction." Hope. It was a small spark in the darkness. Park had learned long ago not to trust hope. It could break your heart. But right now, with everything falling apart, he let himself believe. How long until these soldiers arrive? If they're using quantum-fold technology, maybe 2 hours. Park looked at the countdown timer. 3 hours until they attacked. 2 hours until help arrived. They needed to survive for 1 more hour. 1 hour, 60 minutes, 3,600 seconds. He could do this. They could all do this. "All hands," he said into the communicator. "Hold your positions. Help is coming. We just need to hold a little longer." Somewhere in the station, Sergeant Shin heard the message. He checked his weapon and smiled his smile. In engineering, Ensign heard it too. She felt fresh energy flow through her tired body. Doctor wiped her tears away and stood up. There was work to do. And outside, in the cold darkness of space, the fleet waited. They did not know that their doom was already racing toward them, crossing 400 light-years in the blink of an eye. They would learn soon enough. The signal reached Earth at 3 in the morning, Seoul time. It was weak and broken, barely more than a whisper in the noise of space. But the computers at United Earth Defense Command caught it. They cleaned it up. They decoded it. And then alarms started ringing in offices across the city. General was asleep when her phone rang. She was 61 years old and had not slept well in decades. War had a way of staying with you, even when the fighting was done. She answered on the second ring. "This is General, we have a priority 1 distress signal from station. Siege. 300+ warships. 47 humans and 200 alien delegates trapped. Shields failing." Was out of bed before the officer finished speaking. Her mind was already working through the problem. Station was 400 light-years away. A normal fleet would take weeks to reach it. The people there would be dead long before help arrived. But Earth had something that was not normal. "Wake up the strike units," she said. "I want Alpha, Beta, and Delta teams ready for deployment in 30 minutes. "Ma'am, That's only 30 soldiers against 300 warships. Was already putting on her uniform. I know exactly what it is. Get them ready. The strike unit program was humanity's greatest secret. While other species built bigger ships and larger armies, Earth had taken a different path. They had created soldiers who were not quite soldiers anymore. Men and women wrapped in the most advanced technology humanity had ever produced. Each one was worth 1,000 normal fighters. And they were about to remind the galaxy why. Major was in the training room when the alarm sounded. He was 35 years old, with short black hair and eyes that had seen too much death. His was the ghost, because enemies rarely saw him before they died. He gathered his team in the briefing room, 10 soldiers, 10 of the most dangerous humans alive. They looked at him with calm faces, but he could see the fire in their eyes. Station is under siege, told them. Forces. They're going to kill everyone if we don't stop them. We deploy in 20 minutes. Sergeant First Class I.M. raised her hand. She was 40 years old, built like a tank, and carried weapons that could destroy buildings. How many enemy ships, sir? Over 300. I.M. smiled. It was not a nice smile. Just 300 sounds like a fair fight. The room laughed. It was the laughter of people who had faced death so many times that it had become familiar. Looked at each of his soldiers. He had trained with them for years. He had bled with them. He trusted them with his life. I won't lie to you, he said. This is a hard mission. The odds are against us. Some of us might not come back. If anyone wants to stay behind, I won't judge you. Nobody moved. Nobody even blinked. Good, said, then let's go save some people. The strike units gathered in the deployment bay, 30 soldiers in total, from 3 teams. Their powered armor stood in rows like metal giants. Each suit was 3 meters tall and covered with weapons. The technology inside was so advanced that most species in the galaxy could not understand how it worked. General came to see them off. She walked down the line, looking at each soldier. These were her children in a way. She had built this program from nothing. She had watched them grow into the finest warriors humanity had ever produced. You know what you're facing, she said. You know the risks, but those people on station are counting on you. They're scared and alone and they think they're going to die. You're going to show them that Earth never abandons its own. Sergeant I.M. stepped forward. General, I have a request. Speaker. My daughter's birthday is in 3 days. I promised I'd be there. Looked at her. I.M. was one of the best soldiers she had ever known. She had survived 30 combat drops. She had killed more enemies than most people could count. Then you better come back, said. I.M. grinned. Yes, ma'am. The soldiers climbed into their armor. The metal shells closed around them like protective hands. Systems came online. Weapons loaded. Power cores hummed with energy. Major's voice came through the communication system. All units, final check, sound off. One by one, the soldiers confirmed they were ready. 30 voices, 30 warriors, 30 reasons for them to be afraid. The quantum fold generators began to spin. This technology was humanity's greatest achievement. It could bend space itself, allowing objects to travel vast distances in moments. The generators took enormous amounts of power. Using them was dangerous. But today, danger meant nothing. Quantum fold in 60 seconds, announced the computer. Thought about the people on station. He imagined them huddled in corridors, waiting for death. He thought about the alien delegates who had come in peace and found only war. He thought about who believed they could attack humans without consequences. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 30 seconds. The soldiers braced themselves. The quantum fold was not pleasant. It felt like being pulled apart and put back together at the same time. 10 seconds. Closed his eyes. He thought about his training. He thought about his mission. He thought about the promise he had made when he joined the strike units. To protect, to serve, to never surrender. Fold initiated. The world turned inside out. For one terrible moment, existed everywhere and nowhere. He could feel the fabric of space twisting around him. Then it was over. The strike units appeared in space, 400 light-years from Earth, surrounded by enemy ships. Opened his eyes. Through his helmet display he could see the fleet. 300 warships, bristling with weapons, forming a ring around a tiny station. He smiled behind his faceplate and opened a communication channel. Attention fleet. This is Major of Earth strike units. You are engaged in hostile action against protected personnel. You have 30 seconds to withdraw before we open fire. He could hear the commander laughing. 30 humans against hundreds of ships. It was ridiculous. It was impossible. It was exactly what the strike units were designed for. 29 seconds, said. 28, 27. The shields fell at exactly the moment the commander had promised. Ensign watched her screens go dark and felt her heart break. She had given everything. It had not been enough. All hands, Captain Park's voice came through the speakers. Prepare for boarding. This is not a drill. Fight with everything you have. In the main corridor, Sergeant Shin heard the enemy cutting through the outer hull. The sound was terrible, metal screaming as it was torn apart. He raised his weapon and waited. The wall exploded inward. Warriors poured through the gap. They were monsters from a nightmare. 2 meters tall, covered in black armor with 4 arms that ended in sharp claws. Their eyes glowed red in the darkness. Shin fired. His weapon was small, but he aimed true. The first fell with a hole in its chest. The second stumbled. The third kept coming. Hold the line, Shin shouted. His team opened fire. The corridor filled with light and noise, fell but more kept coming. There were too many, far too many. Young went down with a claw through his shoulder. Another officer was thrown against the wall so hard that she did not get up again. Shin kept fighting, stepping over bodies, firing until his weapon ran out of power. Then he pulled out a knife and kept going. In the medical bay, Doctor heard the fighting getting closer. She had moved all the wounded to the station's core, the most protected area. But protection would not last long against the diplomat stood beside her. He had picked up a heavy metal beam from somewhere. It was not much of a weapon, but it was something. I thought your species did not believe in violence, said. The 4 eyes were hard. We believe in survival, and we believe in standing with those who protect us. Around them, other aliens were picking up whatever they could find. A scientist held a surgical tool like a sword. A cloud being had compressed itself into a tight ball, ready to slam into enemies at high speed. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now standing together. They heard screaming from the corridor, then silence, then heavy footsteps. They're coming, someone whispered. Picked up a metal tray. It would not do much damage, but she would die fighting. That was the human way. The door exploded open. A warrior stepped through, its claws dripping with blood. It looked at the group of civilians and made a sound that might have been laughter. Then they hit it with the metal beam. The alien's strength was incredible. The beam bent around his head. The warrior staggered, shocked. Before it could recover, was on it, driving her tray into its eye. The stabbed with his surgical tool. The cloud being slammed into its chest like a cannon ball. The fell, more warriors pushed through the door. The civilians fought them with desperate strength. In the command center, Lieutenant Han was still at her console. She had refused to leave, even as the station fell apart around her. Her fingers moved across the controls, trying to find any weapon, any system that could help. Captain, she said suddenly, I'm picking up something inside the formation. Park looked at her screen. 30 points of light had appeared in the middle of the enemy fleet. They were moving fast, impossibly fast. What is that? Han's face changed. For the first time since the siege began, she smiled. It's them, sir, the strike units, they're here. Outside, in the cold vacuum of space, Major and his soldiers had finished their countdown. The commander had not withdrawn. He had laughed at the ultimatum. He was not laughing anymore. Moved through space like a bullet made of rage. His armor's thrusters pushed him to speeds that would kill a normal human. His weapons systems locked onto targets faster than thought. He hit the first cruiser at full speed. His armor punched through the hull like paper. Inside, he was a storm of death. His weapons fired in all directions. Crew members died before they knew what was happening. 10 seconds later, he burst out the other side. The cruiser exploded behind him. All around the fleet, the other strike units were doing the same thing. Sergeant, I am destroyed a destroyer with a single shot from her heavy cannon. The explosion was so bright that it hurt to look at. She was already moving to her next target before the light faded. Team Beta hit the flagship. 6 soldiers, moving as one, tore through the massive ship's defenses like they were nothing. The commander tried to flee. He did not get far. The alien fleet was in chaos. They had expected to destroy a helpless station. They had not expected 30 humans who fought like gods of war. On the station, Captain Park watched through the windows. He saw ships burning. He saw the strike units moving between them like angry stars. He saw the enemy fleet that had seemed so invincible being torn apart piece by piece. "Lieutenant Han," he said quietly, "send a message to all defenders. Tell them the cavalry has arrived." The message spread through the station. Sergeant Shin heard it as he fought 3 warriors at once. Fresh strength flowed through his tired body. He killed all 3. Doctor heard it as she stood over the body of a fallen enemy. She looked at the diplomat and smiled. "I told you, we don't give up." Ensign heard it in the engineering section, where she was using a wrench to defend herself. She dropped the wrench and ran to her console. Maybe she could restore some power. Maybe she could help. Throughout the station, the defenders pushed back. They had been losing. They had been dying. But now they had hope, and hope was the most dangerous weapon of all. The boarding parties received orders to retreat. Their fleet was being destroyed. Their mission was failing. They tried to run back to their ships. But the corridors were blocked by humans and aliens who had decided they were done being afraid. The hunters had become the hunted. Outside, Major destroyed his 12th ship and paused for a moment. He looked at the station, still intact, still fighting. He thought about the people inside who had held on against impossible odds. "This is to all units," he said. "No enemy ship leaves this system. No enemy soldier escapes. Make them remember what happens when they attack our people." 30 voices answered him. 30 soldiers spread out across the battlefield. The Empire had come to destroy humanity. Instead, they had awakened something they did not understand. Something that had been waiting in the dark, patient and quiet, until the moment it was needed. Now that something was awake, and it was very, very angry. The battle lasted 43 minutes. In that time, the strike units destroyed 187 warships. The rest fled into hyperspace, running from 30 humans who had turned their mighty fleet into burning metal and floating corpses. Major landed on station's hull and cut through the outer door with his armor's tools. He moved through the corridors, stepping over the bodies of fallen until he reached the command center. Captain Park looked up as the massive armored figure entered. He was bleeding from a cut on his head. His uniform was torn. He had not slept in 18 hours, but he was alive. "Captain Park," said through his helmet speakers, "Major Earth-strike units, we received your distress signal." Park stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed. It was the tired laugh of a man who had expected to die. "You're late," he said. Smiled behind his faceplate. Traffic was bad. All across the station, the fighting ended. The last warriors surrendered or died. The defenders lowered their weapons and looked around at what they had done. They had survived. Against all odds, they had survived. In the medical bay, Doctor collapsed against a wall. Her hands were shaking. Her clothes were covered in blood, some of it hers. The diplomat sat down beside her. "We won," he said quietly. Nodded, she was too tired to speak. "I must tell you something," they continued. "My people have studied humans for a long time. We thought we understood you. We were wrong." Looked at him. "You are not the strongest species in the galaxy. You are not the fastest but you have something that no other species has." He paused, searching for the right words. "You have fire. Inside you. A fire that refuses to go out, no matter how hard the universe tries to put it out." Smiled weakly. "We call it stubbornness." "I call it beautiful." Sergeant Shin sat in the corridor where he had made his stand. Around him lay the bodies of enemies he had killed with nothing but a knife and his bare hands. His team had suffered losses. Young was in the medical bay, recovering from his wounds, would never wake up again. But they had held the line. They had protected the civilians. They had done their duty. A strike unit soldier walked up to him. The massive armored figure knelt down so they were face to face. "You're Sergeant Shin?" the soldier asked. Shin nodded tiredly. "I saw the security footage. You held this position against 40 enemy warriors for 15 minutes, with 6 soldiers. We did what we had to do." The strike unit soldier was quiet for a moment. Then he reached up and removed his helmet. Underneath was the face of a young man, no older than 30. "My name is Lieutenant," he said. "I've been in 30 combat missions. I've seen things that would break most people, but I've never seen anything like what you did today." He held out his hand. Shin shook it. "You're a hero, Sergeant." Shin laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "I'm just a soldier who was too stubborn to die." That's what heroes are. On Earth, General watched the reports come in. The mission was a success. The station was saved. All 30 strike unit soldiers had survived, though several were wounded. The Empire had suffered the worst military defeat in their history. She allowed herself one moment of relief. Then she started planning the next steps. This was not over. They would want revenge. The galaxy would want answers. But for now, Earth could be proud. They had sent a message that would echo through the stars for generations. "Don't touch our people." The news spread across the galaxy like fire. Every species with a communication system saw the footage. 30 humans destroying hundreds of ships, 47 civilians fighting alongside alien delegates refusing to surrender. A small station standing against an empire. Reactions varied. Some species were afraid. If humanity could do this with 30 soldiers, what could they do with their full military? Others were impressed. The humans had proved that they belonged among the great powers of the galaxy. But most species felt something else entirely. They felt hope. For too long, the Empire had bullied and threatened smaller civilizations. For too long, everyone had been afraid to stand against them. Now they knew that someone would fight back. At station, repairs began. Ambassador organized teams of humans and aliens to work together. The same species that had almost turned on each other now shared food and jokes and stories. "We came here to talk about peace," said during a gathering of all the delegates. "We found something better. We found brotherhood. Today, we saw what happens when different species stand together. We saw that we are stronger united than divided." The diplomat stood up. "On behalf of my people, I formally request a permanent alliance with Earth. We wish to stand with you as you stood with us." Other delegates rose. One by one, they made the same request. By the end of the day, 8 new alliances had been formed. Sergeant Im returned to Earth 3 days later, just in time for her daughter's birthday. The little girl ran into her arms, crying and laughing at the same time. "Mommy, they said you were a hero." Im held her daughter close. "I just did my job, sweetie." "Did you save people?" "Yes, many people." The little girl looked up at her with shining eyes. When I grow up, I want to be just like you." I felt tears running down her face. She had fought monsters. She had destroyed ships. She had faced death without flinching. But this moment, holding her daughter, was the greatest victory of all. Captain Park, Doctor, Lieutenant Han, Sergeant Shin, and Ensign received the Medal of Earth in a ceremony broadcast across the galaxy. General presented the awards personally. "These 5 people held a station against an empire," said. "They had no weapons, they had no hope, but they had courage, and that was enough. They remind us what it means to be human." After the ceremony, Park found himself standing alone, looking out at the stars. He thought about everything that had happened, the fear, the pain, the moment when he truly believed they would all die. Ambassador joined him. "What are you thinking about?" "I'm thinking about the future," Park said. "They will be back. Other enemies will come. The galaxy is a dangerous place." Nodded. "Yes, it is. But after today, that danger feels a little smaller." Park looked at her. "Why?" "Because now everyone knows the truth. Humans don't abandon each other. We don't surrender. We don't give up," she smiled. "We were cornered. We were outnumbered. We should have died, but we didn't. We fought back, and we won." Park thought about Sergeant Shin, holding a corridor with a knife. About Ensign, keeping the shields alive through pure will. About Lieutenant Han, sending a signal through impossible interference. About Doctor, saving lives while the world burned around her. "Yes," he said finally, "we won." Above them, the stars continued to shine. They had shone for billions of years and would shine for billions more. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched species grow great and then vanish into darkness. But tonight, they shone a little brighter, because somewhere in that vast ocean of light, a small species had reminded the universe of a simple truth. Humans do not break. They bend, they bleed, they cry, they fall. But they do not break. And when they rise again, the galaxy itself holds its breath.